What can I make with this awesome model kit from Fist of War? It's the Nachteule and it looks so good. It has a searchlight on top, so it should be looking for something. And if it needs a light, it's dark, so maybe a cave. But what can it look for? A creature, some kind of creepy creature. And of course we need soldiers because the creature is dangerous. Yep, I think that's what we'll do. So I started sketching the scene and only later noticed that you couldn't see what I was drawing. So here's another picture of the scene. Welcome back to the Geeky Workbench. I love the Fist of War series because they're fictional war machines, mechs, aliens and stuff like that. And I love this model because it has this searchlight on top and I really wanted to fill that with LEDs. So that's the first point where I started. I wanted to make the lamp on top and I wanted to make holes in it so I could add the LEDs. And I tried different methods, but I didn't really like them. So in the end, I took all of the insides out, like this, so the light would shine through. Some parts of the searchlight were glued and some were not, to keep it posable and movable. The top and bottom parts didn't have many extra details, so they were quickly done. Then followed the preparation for the trickiest part, the legs. First I cut all the pieces of the spruce, then I cleaned them all up and started gluing them to the prepared partial legs, which were a pain in the neck to assemble. And that's the first of 4 done. And when I had all the parts assembled, I started adding the legs to the main body part. And I cannot explain this leftover part. I primed it in black and then added a grey base coat. And here I tried to leave the edges and the ridges darker than the main parts. And with an even lighter grey, I only highlighted the surface areas. After I had painted the searchlight too, I left everything to dry, and it was time to start with the soldiers. And this was my third batch. The first and second didn't come with feet or legs. The soldiers are primed in a light grey, and the creature I primed in black. But then I noticed this one was too big and I primed a second creature about half the size. And before we get to painting, let's check on the tunnel. Okay, so I glued lots of foam pieces together and let's see if the glue is dry. Seems to be holding. Okay, time to cut some foam. Let's say this is the front because this looks a bit more tidy than this side. Okay, now the foam is prepared. This is the front. I'm taking away all these areas to make the tunnel go through, and so you can look into the tunnel from the side. Okay, so I just spent way too much time on carving out this foam, but I've finished. This is what it looks like. And yeah, I realized that I could have done the front part last and carve out this separately and then glue this on later, but you learn. Now it's time to cover up the surface area with some Art Podge paint and filler material to make the surface a bit more rock-like. I just realized I don't want the tunnel to go through out there, but rather come in a corner around here. So I'll be adding some more foam and cut it so it looks like it's going around this way. Then I added some brown paint and some stones and rocks and left it to dry. The Nightowl was also ready now to receive some decals I made myself, which I will show later. I made a little logo which I wanted to add to the legs of the Nightowl. The H, X and C stand for Human X Corporation, and you will learn more about this company later. Then I went over the model with a sponge and some light grey and later also some gunmetal and silver to give some chipping effects and weathering effects. Then I made a black oil wash, which I used to darken the panel lines and recesses, which I think is very satisfying to watch when the paint flows through. And I forgot to film and tell you before, but before you add oil washes, secure your paint with a varnish, clear varnish. Best would be gloss varnish. And that's the Nightowl painted. I had plans on using so many LEDs, but in the end I only needed one. To make the wires less visible later, I painted them with black. And then I wanted to paint the creature, but I really didn't know where to start. So I took the bigger print and practiced a bit. As you can see, this is a practice piece with lots of different colors and shadings, and I used a color wheel and just tried some things out because I didn't know where to start. And I also consulted a tutorial online and then decided to do the base coat with the airbrush. And this is what it looked like. A dark green and a dark flesh red. And because I have no clue what I'm doing and I'm just trying this for the first time, I better tell you something about the creature and the Human X Corporation I mentioned earlier. The creature is a result of an experiment. Human X Corp has mixed human DNA with alien DNA and also added a little bit of bat DNA. And of course humans make mistakes and this experiment did not go to plan. The creature managed to escape into the tunnels that lie beneath the laboratories. Which brings us back to the tunnel I'm painting. I use different shades of brown to add some variation to the cave. Then I covered the outside with lots of cardboard. Okay, so the tunnel is covered in cardboard. I put 2 layers of art podge on it. It's dry now, and now I want to smooth out the edges, do a bit of sanding, and hopefully cover up some mistakes here, and then paint everything in black. And while the putty dries, I can tell you something about the soldiers. This little squad is former military and now hired by Human X Corporation. After multiple near catastrophes because of escaped subjects, the company decided to hire proper ex-military for security. And even though this squad has been on the job for a few years now and they've seen what Human X Corp is doing, they were not prepared for this mission. All the big guns and flamethrowers and the Nightowl gave them a false sense of security. But before we carry on with the story, let me show you how I made the tiny decals for their little shoulder patches. From sketch to Illustrator to decal paper. Some water and some decal fix. If you enjoyed the video so far, thank you for watching my video. And why not subscribe and like while you're here? You'd really help me grow this channel. Now that everything's finished, it's time to assemble and tell you a little bit more about the story. Because the creature had escaped before all procedures had finished, it kept on growing. But the soldiers didn't know that. They weren't prepared for this huge, superhuman creature. When they went down into the tunnel with their big machine and guns, they were certain that they would come out with the creature. But it already knew that they were coming. It was waiting for them. And I'm leaving it to your imagination what happened with the squad. Now it's time for the final results.